The planet Jupiter went direct a little bit earlier today being September the 12th, and Jupiter entered the sign of Capricorn, which it is currently transiting in December of 2019. It has been there for, it will be there for almost all of 2020, and on December the 17th of this year, actually no, December the 19th of this year, 2020, it'll move from Capricorn to Aquarius. And so Jupiter entered December 2019, went retrograde May the 12th, I think, or May the 13th, and September the 12th, of course, it's going direct again, and then it's going to keep going all the way through, and it almost works to do it the other way. So entered Capricorn retrograde May the 12th, May the 13th, direct again September the 12th, and out of Capricorn into Aquarius on December the 19th. Especially notable. I've done a separate video on Jupiter and Capricorn. I'll post a link to that at the end of this video once I'm done processing this video and uploading it. Jupiter, wherever it transits, as I've mentioned to you before, I find creates endings and new beginnings. And as my clients are sick of hearing this, because it's a Jupiter transit I have to cover in whatever it is that we're talking about whenever we do our readings, it's the end typically of a 12 to 13 year cycle and the start of a 12 to 13 year cycle in the part of the chart that it is transiting. It is also a planet that is considered the great benefic, the luckiest planet, so to speak, and I find that it tends to work in counterintuitive ways insofar as it has a tendency to create endings and new beginnings rather than bestow a great deal of good fortune. It tends to create a lucky break. An astrologer I once consulted with used the term auspicious new beginning. Auspicious new beginning. And in many respects that has stuck with me in my interpretations because it seems like the right lens. It's as if the planet comes into a part of the chart, sees what needs to be, sees what's going on, assesses whether you're on the right track or not, the right dharmic track for you. Jupiter's a planet of dharma, and if you're not, it tends to try and help get you on the right path by removing an old couch, creating a blank space, and then introducing the process of bringing a new couch in. It's a trickle, it's not the full river. Now, sometimes when Jupiter transits a house, the reputation it has is that it's going to give you your Oscar or your Nobel Prize or your Pulitzer or your $1 million or your big promotion. And I don't see that often, to be completely clear. It bugs me when I see those interpretations because I think people are just, anyway, that's not my experience. It can happen sometimes, and a lot depends on how Jupiter functions in your chart. I'm much more intrigued by these days. Astrologers keep developing, so I'm very intrigued by looking at people's charts and looking at the nature and strength of the planet in the birth chart and seeing whether there's a connection with how a birth chart is placed, a planet is placed in the birth chart, and whether its transits reflect the quality of the strength and support it's getting in the birth chart or not. But that's for another day. So Jupiter, having gone direct and introduced certain changes or assessments, and then having gone retrograde, and has already come into the part of your chart where the sign of Capricorn is, taken stock of things, gone back and reviewed what needs to be done, and now starts to move forward, hurtle forward practically, to leave the sign of Capricorn in the middle of December. Remember that Saturn and Pluto are both in Capricorn as well, and until June of this year, the eclipses of release or letting go were also in the sign of Capricorn. The sign of Capricorn is where I have likened or brought up this analogy of there being a forest fire. I am in Southern California, and I can smell the smoke. There's no question, it's kind of funny to be weird to be talking about a forest fire right now, but it's where I've been saying that there's a forest fire going in this part of the chart, and this has been going in this part of the chart since at least Saturn's entry here in December 2017. And eclipses of release started up here in July of 2018, and the pressure is on, and Jupiter goes direct today, September the 12th. Saturn goes direct September the 28th. Saturn moves into Aquarius December the 17th, Jupiter moves into Aquarius. December the 19th and December the 21st, they conjunct. Saturn and Jupiter meet up in Aquarius on December the 21st. So this particular phase now is a very interesting. It's Jupiter and Saturn both concluding their work in the sign of Capricorn for the rest of September. Well, let's just say October, November, and into December. And this conclusion is longed for and is necessary and is very much in line with the theme of the second half of this year. Get done with energies where Cancer and Capricorn are in your chart. Prepare for the eclipses and taking on the eclipses more fully where Gemini and Sagittarius are in your chart. And getting done with the sign of Capricorn means learning and incorporating lessons and leaning into these endings and new beginnings. Wherever there's been a forest fire, as I've likened before with Jupiter, there's new shoots of green appearing. And so Jupiter wants to go ahead and get those shoots to really take hold so that over the next 13 years they continue to grow and they continue to mature. So it's time to look at where Capricorn is in your chart, understand consequence, understand the idea of learning. Sometimes it feels like punishment with Saturn there. Understand what is ending, understand what is beginning, and really try and assess and pay attention to what is lingering and what needs to be done. With the sign of Capricorn and where it's at, a lot is around understanding where your patterns and behaviors and boundaries have been that have not been serving you, and what has been going on for you in this part of the chart since December 2017, accelerated after middle of July 2018 and is now getting done. A lot of it is in the realms of where those boundaries need to be placed now, where a new sense of self-discipline needs to be placed, and what are the lessons that you have learned. And Jupiter is trying to construct something out of all of this and actually give you a bit of a break, even though it's not going to feel like it more often than not. The other thing that is really important to note about Jupiter going direct is Mars, which is helping us move forward during the second half of this year, has now gone retrograde till the middle of November. So the planet that has been actually encouraging and pushing for some self-directed and energized and self-oriented eagerness and speed of getting done with these past energies that have been holding us back is now retrograde. And strangely enough, the planets that have been retrograde in Capricorn, where we are processing whatever it is that needs to be released over the next few months, are now starting to go direct. So the planet, in some respects, the planets that have been ushering a certain amount of forward movement is going backwards, and the planets that have been holding on to certain energies and not completely still digesting them are one by one starting to go direct. Jupiter today, Saturn September the 28th. So it's a strange kind of, the planet that's been ushering forward movement is now going backwards, and the planets that have been holding on to and been chewing on whatever they've been chewing on are like ready to move forward and digest. It's creating a bit of a churn, because remember that a Mars retrograde is going to square, as I covered in my last video on Mars going retrograde, is going to square and create tensions, continue to create this kind of dynamic churn and tension with, it's going to square Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn. I mentioned the dates in my last video. I'll put a link to that video as well at the end of this one. And so that churn continues, and with Mars, after it goes direct in November, it's going to square these planets one more time. So this churn and this growth and this conflict between the lessons that are being learned and the conservative and the self-oriented or the selfish, all of that is very, now it's really taking, between now and the middle of November is really when a certain churn is going to be occurring. You're going to be done with certain things, you're going to be incorporating certain lessons, and in October a certain amount of speed is going to pick up. But with Mars retrograde, there's still a certain amount of revisiting certain things that are happening. As I've mentioned to you, after the middle of November and into December, it's all systems go. It's rapid forward movement. August brought earthquakes, as I like to say. September, October, and part of November will bring a certain amount of reconsideration and us getting adjusted to some of the things that August has brought and the full potential of them. So there's a certain amount of going over things, but there's also now, from a fated perspective, with Jupiter and Saturn, things happen from the outside as well. Things start to move from the outside as well. So you are not only dealing with your own development, but you're also reacting to changes that these planets are trying to make. So October, November, December, see fate, or these kind of fated planets that bring a certain amount of development, start to move things towards a newer future. And so it'll be very interesting to see how this evolves. The final thing I want to mention with Jupiter is actually a pretty important one. Jupiter now direct is going to meet up with Pluto on November the 12th, and then of course, as we've discussed, with Saturn on December the 21st. The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction has marked for me an expansion of the coronavirus situation. This is the final conjunction. So when I look at issues related to the virus, and when I look at issues related to our social and political situation and the tensions that have been present in many parts of the world, but I'm talking particularly about the States, you know, it's not surprising that these planets conjunct November the 12th. It's a question of where will they leave us and where will this conjunction leave us. Jupiter is a planet of expansion, and as I said, new beginnings and endings, and Pluto is a planet of death and transformation. With the Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions that we've had two so far, I certainly can correlate them to the expansion of the virus. So I don't know. I'm going to watch and see what this means. Is there going to be some sort of a relapse and an expansion again that we're going to have to deal with? Can we actually see that this relapse or this expansion comes with some healing? Are we going to wait for the healing to occur next year? You know, after the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, certainly we're in the churn now, guys. You know, it's September. December is not that far away. It feels far away. It's not that far away. The election is not that far away either. You know, we're less than 2 months away from the election. And so it's a little bit like churning butter. It's a little bit like being in the middle of the churn. Certain planets that have been retrograde all summer are now starting to move ahead and really want to be done with lessons that have been in place since July 2018 and have been holding on to them. The planet Mars, kind of a disruptive planet so far, has kind of put its feet back. And so while we are experiencing a certain lack of vitality, the fates are taking over. The fates are taking control. And by the time we get to mid-November and into December, we're going to be pushing towards a new future. And, you know, I can't make it up. The calendar of political events is very much sort of chimed into that. And I know they weren't thinking about these planetary transits when they made whatever plans people made around that stuff. So I would continue to watch what happens with this kind of virus situations and the political things that we've been dealing with. There's certainly a conclusive growth that continues into December and into January, but this heading towards the November 12th date doesn't entirely make me comfortable. You know, it makes me wonder whether as we start another phase of reopening, whether there's still some lessons that we have to learn and incorporate. So we'll see how that goes. Outside of that, I'm delighted that Jupiter is turning direct. When Jupiter goes retrograde, it does feel a little bit like our luck, or the kind of grease that keeps the wheels turning, where we can be aided through sticky situations by some even small kind of divine interventions or what feels like a certain amount of luck. For a lot of people, that should start to return. When Jupiter goes retrograde, that ease and facility that we are relying on sometimes feels like it's gone away, and sometimes it feels like it's all up to us to push something and make something work. So Jupiter going direct, generally speaking, is always a positive thing. And ushering in an auspicious new beginning, you know, why would we not welcome that? Although it conjuncting Pluto, certainly a summer of mortality on some level, and the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is going to happen on November the 12th. So I think it's I think of it as all hands on deck and observing and seeing where this is going, and knowing that certainly from my side, I can correlate the last two Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions that happened this year, and there are 3 this year. Certainly I can correlate with the expansion of the virus, first and foremost, and also has certainly some sort of impact on the social and political situation. Although this is being given all sorts of different and complex, you know, some people are saying that it's ushering outcome A, some people are saying it's ushering outcome B, and we're just going to continue and see how all of that plays out. Certainly by the time Jupiter and Saturn goes into Aquarius, a time of focus that's after December 17th, 19th, 21st of this year. 17th Saturn enters Aquarius, 19th Jupiter enters Aquarius, ushers in a couple of years of a push for social equality. We got a sample of this in March, April, May, and June of this year. So it will be interesting to see where we end up by the middle of November, so that we can really get a sense of how rebellious that is going to be, or whether it is going to be an attempt to redo and reconstruct what has been done here in the States, at least so far. I leave you with these thoughts. I'm excited that Jupiter is moving forward. I am eager to see some change and some forward movement from a broader perspective. I know many of my clients are. I know some of you are. I'm not going to promise that it's going to be an easy rest of the year. It's not going to be. There's certainly a push and a pull and a churn, but I'd much rather have that churn start so that we can really start to move to a place that feels much more conclusive. There's certainly an attempt to create a new beginning, wherever it is that Capricorn is in your chart. So I would certainly, if you know where that is and what house it occupies and what it stands for, just know that that is now in the works. And with Saturn going direct on September the 20th, when we come to October and November, even though we have Mars retrograde till the middle of November and Mercury retrograde in October and early November, the churn has started. These kind of retrograde and direct planets are going to create the sense of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and then middle of November, it's like, boom, we know where we're going. We're headed in a certain direction. All systems go. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Feel free to like this video, comment on it. If you like, it increases viewings on YouTube, I believe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell icon after you subscribe it, because then you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. My contact information, my email address is in the description box, so you can certainly use that to contact me to inquire about rates for personal reading, or if you want me to make an easy to read version of your chart that shows you which sign is in which house and what those houses stand for, I can do that too. But inquire about the rates first before you send me any personal information like your birth time or birth location and stuff like that, so that you're sure you want to move forward and really share that, and we'll take it from there. Okay, I will leave it at this. Happy Jupiter going direct at a pretty complex time.